And welcome back to the LEC studio. Just before the break, we saw W8D2 firing shots at Frankie to learn to get back to CS. And I tell you now, I bet he wishes he could go back to the first half.
Oh, God.
But they did. They started it.
Leave the boy alone.
Sorry, man. Sorry. But real talk, though, we had a fantastic game from him, and he actually picked up your Kia Player of the Game. W8D2 has picked it up with 86% of the votes. What was Bwipo yesterday? He was pretty close to that, like
84.
Something like
He
that.
two-upped him.
Ooh,
My question is,
him.
what were the other 14% looking at? Like,
that Tristana Pentasteel?
yeah, I suppose that, but yeah.
No, but Upset, of course, part of that as well. But that, we have to kind of just quickly touch on how incredible that game was to see none other than Schalke. Amazing. You don't seem particularly rejuvenated. You're not, there's no joyous sprightliness to you.
I have a smile on my face, so that's already
That's
a change,
true.
you know?
Yeah.
But I do think that there's still ways to go, but I'm hopeful now that they can
Yeah.
fix the things.
It certainly was a great performance, and of course, Misfits looking more lost than ever. But we are gearing up for another clash in the race for playoffs, as Splyce versus SK Gaming is up next. Now, for Splyce, it's not just about getting into playoffs. They also look to challenge Vitality for that second place. And given their win against G2, they should have a good shot, wouldn't you say?
I mean, based on how they played yesterday, that certainly seems to be the case. They seem to have aligned on their draft. They seem to have a clear idea of how they want to play. Individual members are stepping up across the board. And overall, Splyce looking like a very good team as we approach playoffs.
Yeah, and for the first time, I think this split, you can actually see that they're evolving. They're actually trying to fix a lot of the mistakes that they have been doing in the past, which is not being pushy enough, not in the mid game, not being aggressive enough and forcing plays. This game was complete aggression, and especially Chachi played the front runner.
Yeah, I mean, that croc. Let's talk about this Renekton performance, because, I mean, we got a bit confused. This isn't like a retro Chachi champ, is it?
Well, it's something that back in the day he was very well known for. Back in the day, depending on how far you want to go back. But what has been hit or miss for Vizicachi is throughout this split, he has been a large contributor of the team's deaths. He hasn't really been one of the big carry of the team, and he wasn't really someone you looked at who could help his team really turn those leads into victories. But with the performance that he had on Renekton, I think it gives a lot more hope for Splyce fans. And if he can repeat these kind of performances, it kind of goes back to the Vizicachi of old, where he could pick those carry tops and actually have a large impact on the overall game.
Do you echo that sentiment? Amazing that, you know, Chachi is going to be a real threat and contender for Splyce now?
I mean, he's always been better come playoffs, especially last year when I played with him. He was ramping up throughout the split, and at the end of the split, he was maybe even the best top laner, at least what I can tell. Maybe some bias there, but he still performed extremely well and understands patches really well and the changes that come in with it. So once he's actually comfortable somewhere and he has his champion pool established, he plays really cleanly, and we saw it yesterday.
Yeah, he looked incredibly comfortable on that Renekton. Now, on the other side of the rift, we've got SK, who are fighting tooth and nail to make it into the top 6. But my question to you guys is, how did they pull this off? It looks like a daunting task for any player.
Yeah, it certainly does, largely because when we talked about SK yesterday, it was very much about they seem to have a lot of the mechanics, they're not really afraid to make plays, but they can't really play the map properly. There are big windows or opportunities for teams to punish them. And yesterday, it was a clear example of how if they actually don't leverage their strong individual players and they don't try to be proactive on the map, it ends up just being a stall-controlled game that they can't really have any answers to deal with.
Now, I heard whispers that people are hoping to see Selfmade on a proactive early game champion. I mean, amazing. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, he needs to be. So far, the split has been up and down, obviously for SK, as it has been for a lot of other bottom teams. He needs to basically be the facilitator in the early game. They've won a lot of games in the beginning of the split by him just being aggressive early, making plays, getting them ahead, because that kind of takes him away from having to play the Marco game where they're not as strong in.
So you want to basically go a bit down the G2 path of stand on that throat early.
Yeah, basically, and I think that they have the players to do it. Selfmade was the best ganking jungler at the beginning of the split, and I don't think that's disappeared for him. I just want to see him return to that, and really you've got nothing left to lose right now. The standings are kind of set that you need to get this win.
This is an important one for both teams, and in the race for playoffs, every single game counts. And for SK, this is more real than ever. Let's see if they can take down Splyce.
Super difficult situation. Thank you very much, Machine. Now, I won't be casting the Vitality game later, but there are a whole bunch of Portuguese fans here in the studio, and I tried to learn a little bit of Portuguese. I'm going to try my hand out here. Nem tarde, nem cedo. And it's extremely important for both of these teams to not waste any time. The saying basically means be there right now, be there on time, and that's what SK has to do today.
I'm very impressed, Trevor.
I tried. I actually had to double check with the Portuguese speaker. They weren't making me swear, and it was verified.
You guys missed your chance.
Thank you very much, Chakarez. Let's turn our attention to the game, though. Do or die. Splyce picking up that win against G2 yesterday was phenomenal. Yep. It increases the number of scenarios that they make playoffs to 92%.
It felt like we were in this race of Vitality, Origin, G2, and it was this musical chairs of who is actually the top team. It's probably still G2. And
yes.
then Splyce from the back were like, guys, what about us?
The third team to take down G2 Esports in the second half of the split. And it was a convincing win. It was a controlled win, and you can levy criticism or praise in any direction you want, but it just makes the battle more difficult for SK today.
So the thing is that you know that G2 didn't have that much to play for. They played with a Karthus jungle, which is something that you need to take away from Splyce, but it wasn't that fast speed. So I'm just kind of curious, was this Splyce actually taking down the top team in top form in one of their best pockets, or was this Splyce catching a pretty lucky break? And this is what the game will tell me. Like, if they completely dismantle SK, I'm all aboard the Splyce hype train. I'm like, yes, 5v5 late game team fights, let's go.
I think that's super important for me as well. If Splyce play the same way, confident, proactive, controlled, a week and a half before playoffs is a pretty good time to figure out how to play and find into gears. And there's the Karthus band away from Xerxes.
Yeah, SK have learned from G2's mistakes. So, we're not going to take this with the denial pick. We are just going to take this off the board. Xerxes is not going to get to play it.
All right, so Karthus, Braum, Jarvan taken off the table, as well as Lucian. And important to note that Splyce elected red side for this game. So looking for some counter pick options against the likes of Pyrian or maybe Whirlib. And, Whirlib is one of the guys that SK have tried to enable, tried to play around, but he hasn't truly been one of the hard carries for SK this split.
And when you talk to SK, they speak very highly of Whirlib, and I think you have seen kind of glimmers of that power. He was previously in the league, I believe, for Giants.
Yes.
Then came back with SK, so he did have a lot to prove. He was known as a Jax one-trick, so he technically is a more carry-oriented player, but he's really made his name in 2019 spring as kind of that big poppy player. And why I bring that up is because Jace has actually slipped through the bans. And I feel like whenever you let Jace through the bans, you're essentially saying, with Renekton and Jace available, do you take it? We're throwing down the gauntlet. Can you play it? Can you flex this power pick?
Well,
and the answer is no.
You definitely don't want to play Vizicachi's Renekton or go against Vizicachi's Renekton after what he did with that champion. And I mean, that Jace pick, not prioritized. It's Lissandra instead, the safer option. Slightly simpler one to pull off. Also, Pyrian's most played. Out of SK Gaming's 7 wins, 4 of them have come while Lissandra's there.
I do want to quickly jump on this Aatrox pickup, though. So we have seen Xerxes play in the jungle, but why I actually think this is really brilliant is we saw Bwipo pick up the Aatrox into Soaz's Renekton yesterday, and with Renekton being such a big power pick, the genius of this flex is we have the Aatrox, and it dissuades you from grabbing the powerhouse of Renekton, because we can flex this into the top lane and give you a very difficult matchup, or it was just the jungler all along, and we now leveraged another ban at you.
I think that's super clever. We saw what Aatrox can do against Renekton yesterday when Bwipo played Soaz. And very quick lock-ins now. Nocturne and Galio instantaneously secured. I'm starting to see another wombo combo here. So definitely some initiation engaged tools. And you know what works really well against some engaged tools? Champions like Zoe. We just saw in the previous game, and Humanoid's got his mid laner.
Yeah, Zoe's also one of the few champions that has a good matchup into Lissandra. She can outrange her, she can match her wave clear, her long range abilities can help follow the roam potential of Lissandra, so it is usually the matchup that if you give Lissandra and Zoe's up, that you're probably going to see a Liss Zoe in that mid lane.
And Zoe by Humanoid played twice, no wins yet in spring. Let's see if it can happen today against SK as we enter phase 2. AD carry is being removed yet. Neither bot lane has been secured yet. Kalista, Siva removed from the table, as well as the Lucian.
I'm actually really shocked that Splyce banned the Kalista on their side because they prioritized Norscaren's Thresh. Thresh Kalista is the iconic duo of this matchup, and I know that Kobbe is more known for his late game scaling ADCs like Sivir that's been banned against him, but Kalista would have been an excellent pick here.
Well, let's see what direction they go. I mean, do they go more poke? Kobbe's Ezreal has been one of the more impressive champions he's played. Trying to look at what else is available for them as the AD carry pool keeps getting pinched.
I do like the idea that you're going with like more of a defensive option because you already see that there's a Galio support locked in. While Thresh and Galio can both be very aggressive kill-oriented bot lanes, I feel like Thresh can kind of play both sides of the coin. He can be more defensive with his Lantern. So if you do see the Ezreal pick up here from Kabe, they can't just say, okay, we see the Galio, we know that you want to go all in, we're just going to deny it from you and absorb a lot of that pressure.
All right, a lot of time to figure out what they're going to be locking in, and going to be that blind cannon once again, assuming Werlib's going to run some of those options, and this will give us an indication that Xerxes running the Aatrox in the jungle, most likely.
Yeah, but the Jace is still up and available. It's not the greatest. It can be a skill matchup either way. I've seen it flipped either way. So we'll see what Werlib is going to go for. Again, this has been kind of the big tank player, but he was known as a carry.
Yes.
It's do or die, now or never. What's it going to be?
Well, a few seconds left to figure it out. I mean, would you run a Poppy into that? No, we've seen the Yorick ban several times, risen to prominence over the last few weeks, and it will be secured. This is the second Yorick for Werlib. He does have a 1-0 record on that champion as Norscaron continues to hover his signature hovers in Warwick and Volibear. What AD carry do they run? Do you think Ezreal fits here, or do they go something more scaling?
I would love to see yes!
It is locked in. All right, what does this mean? This is the first time we've seen Kabe running the Vayne, this split, in combination with Zoe, Kennen, Aatrox. I'm going to go on the record and say this is not the team comp I was anticipating.
I am so happy. So the cool thing about Vayne is that she has been, I'm not going to say changed, but she's picking up some new builds and new speed in Korea. We'll keep track of Kabe's build to see if he does go that route. It's kind of like the perfect storm of Vayne. With some of the changes to the runes, with some of the power brought back into attack speed, she just kind of fits in a very healthy spot right now. And where it used to be that Vayne would just immediately sack a lane, that she's not going to be anything before late game, that's no longer true. Vayne finds much more opportunities to be proactive earlier in the game, and she's no longer just a sit back and scale type of ADC.
Oh man, so exciting. We get to see whether or not Kabe can step up and help his team get closer to playoffs. If Splyce win this game, they will guarantee at least a tiebreaker for playoffs. That means they are in the top 6. They may have to play a tiebreaker game pending other results. We will see how the results play out. Still 8 games to go, and Norscaron looks nervous.
I mean, the reality is that I don't think Splyce just want top 6. We always call them the gatekeepers, that they're just kind of that just out of the relevant talking point. You know, we talk about all these top teams, but Splyce is never there in the conversation. They want more. They are not just the gatekeepers. They want to be the gate crashers. So here is the definitive moment. Make your stake. Slaughter SK and prove that you are a top team.
When you are a number 1, number 2 team, number 3 team going up against the lower ranks, that's where those statements matter. And Splyce kicked the G2 door in yesterday, and they made that statement. I love the term gate crasher, because they took down G2 Esports, the number 1 squad. Now, as we load up onto the Rift, I do have a quick stat for you, Froskurin.
I love quick stats.
3 times Kabe has played Vayne in his career, and all 3 times he has been victorious. 100% win rate on the champion.
Stats don't lie.
There we go.
Pack it up. We know who won.
Odds are in Splyce's favor. They're 9-6, and they're also, by the way, in the race for second place. You know, they are touching distance from Vitality, and if G2 beat Vitality later, they could be on the same number of wins and losses at the end of the week.
With only 3 days left in the LEC spring split, things are getting very spicy.
One might say every game counts.
Hashtag. Yes,
okay.
exactly.
A few fans there not super excited about that one. But let's turn our attention now to the draft, because it is... I understand SK's draft a lot more than I do Splyce's, but where do we anticipate most of the action to begin from as we go through the early laning phase?
Usually you would look at the junglers, but for me, I'm still just all looking at the bottom laners. I was trying to pull up Kabe's runes. You can see that he went for press the attack and the domination. So the thing is in the domination, he's going to take Taste the Fear, I believe. Basically, it's about sustain. A lot of the Vaynes are now maxing the W as opposed to the Q, even though the Q got buffs. And it's about putting out as many auto attacks as possible, making sure that you're abusing the attack speed that you're going to load into your build. But because you're getting so much kind of passive lifesteal, she becomes a lot tankier, and the ability to put out sustained damage and survive sustained fights is much higher for the Vayne this time around.
Ooh, okay, so let's see. And on a carry, like Mr. Splyce, Cobby, who has been very reliable, very consistent. I actually saw several comments on Reddit and social media as well, just talking about how this guy is just, he's been good for such a long time, but he's on the periphery of being the best. You know, there's always some people that you can argue and contest, but there are very few players that are as reliable and as consistent as this man.
It's, you know, what do you want out of your AD carry? Do you want flashy? Do you want the crazy plays? Or do you want that backbone and that consistency? Because that's what Kabe will give you. My only issues with Kabe and why I kind of keep him out of that conversation of best ADC is that I feel like Kabe is a win more ADC. When you align the dominoes and you allow him to just knock them down, which he can do on a champion like Vayne, he'll execute every time, but he has rarely been the ADC to kind of set up the dominoes and make the plays for himself, where someone like Reckless or Upset have done that.
Well, I really like the options with the Zoe, with the Thresh. There are some tools to be used. Cersei gets a little bit of a helping hand here. And Dreams as wins of one. While we see Cersei on the screen, one of the guys that can set up these plays on a champion like Aatrox, take a look at some of the impact he's had. He's one of the more proactive, impressive early game junglers.
I actually think it's really important that Xerxes was contesting the Krugs away from Selfmade and Nocturne. Krugs is one of the camps that has the most experience into it, and as a Nocturne, you're in a race for level 6. And Selfmade loves Krug camp. He does this all the time because he's all about me, me, me. He wants to get as much power on him before he transfers it into the lanes. By upsetting his Krug camp and forcing him to extend dangerously to go for Krug camps, which now is being warded by Chachi, you set this trap. You know Selfmade is going to go for this.
Ooh, Selfmade is going to see Chachi though, and vice versa. So unable to secure the camp, but the damage is done. He's lost the XP.
And it's a huge cross-map play just to slow down Selfmade. And it seems so insignificant and small, but it can be a big factor on a champion like Nocturne that is so reliant on that EXP and is so reliant on paranoia.
And on a player like Selfmade. Take a look at Dreams, decides to go into the Justice Punch, Condemn into the wall, forces the flash away. Norscaron unable to land the death sentence, but a summoner-less Galio could be picked off a little later. And just to go back to that point, a player like Selfmade that has been the game changer, the man that if he doesn't initiate plays for SK, the team traditionally has not been able to rally without him.
Yeah, and look at him right now. He's like, I wish I had something to farm. My mid laner is gone. I'm only level 3. There's no crab for me to take. And he's just basically waiting for his camps to spawn.
Yeah, Chicken Camp just respawned as you started that discussion there. Frost, so Selfmade a little behind, currently a level down. We'll keep an eye on how quickly he does hit there. He just did 4. So he's clearing out his chickens as he's going to push back. And remember, Dreams, no flash available. Teleports on both AD carries. So they're going to set those ones up. And it is a pretty even CS game right now. Pickaxe and Fairy Charm secured for crown shots.
The nice thing about the Fairy Charm is that it just has a really high resale value, so a lot of people will just pick it up and then sell it on later down the road. It allows Kai'Sa just sit back in the lane and spam her W.
Farm from safety. Play a little bit more defensive, especially when your support is a little low down. And we've seen how Nakabi and Norscaron are pushing very far forward. And we just caught a glimpse there. Whirlip finally helping Selfmade pick up the crab. And I want to turn our attention to Whirlip a little bit.
I was going to say...
Yeah, that confused me.
Probably a spectator bug.
I held my breath.
Papa Smithy taught me this trick. If they don't move, probably a bug.
Let's spend a moment or two talking about Whirlip. He's got the Conqueror Yorick. He's down a little bit of CS, I think, as you might expect early on into a Kennen matchup. But, you know, big pressure on his shoulders to become a split-pushing threat on this champion.
I mean, big play, too. He went back and bought a Sheen. So he is looking for these pretty aggressive trades here, and he may actually find one with some assistance.
All right, Pyrian will just step over the wards, and Chachi with Flash and Lightning Rush. Very easy to escape. Also, the wave wasn't ideal, so Whirlip didn't want to concede a lot of that XP.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Chachi wants to bounce that off the tower to make sure that he's not overextending himself dangerously, especially when Selfmade is getting closer and closer to level 6. And I think what you're going to see is they're constantly going to contest Selfmade's camps for vision and information. Keep him down from level 6, track where he is, and that's how you're going to see Splyce kind of morph on the map of where they're stepping forward, where they're pulling back.
And if Splyce are going to be playing the map that way, with this type of composition that is a little different, does this fit into your understanding of Splyce strengths? You know, your understanding of what Splyce do well?
I've called Splyce kind of like baby's first League of Legends team because their fundamentals are so crisp. Like if you're just kind of experimenting with how a team organizes macro, what does really clean, very fundamental macro look like, I think Splyce is a perfect example because they play objective-based League of Legends. They're not here to kill you. They're here to win the lane through their CS advantages, their structure chipping, playing around dragons, vision setup like that. So again, it's hard to get behind Splyce because they're not the flashiest team when you have someone like G2 in the league.
Yeah.
But their fundamentals are very clean.
If you were a studious type and you wanted to go by the textbook of play.
Paint by numbers.
There we go. Win, kill Nexus by League of Legends basics. That's kind of what Splyce are pretty good at.
But it's what makes them so consistent. At the end of the day, if you can win the league or compete for second place by just putting up the easy wins on the board, why not just take it? We can leverage all the flame we want at Splyce, but they're still winning.
And at the end of the day, it's like flame is a strong word in my opinion. I think preferences, right? Because everybody enjoys different types of League of Legends. And Splyce just play a slightly different flavor to the current number 1 and 2 teams in G2 and Vitality, which is a bit more, shall we say, aggressive.
Explosive?
Explosive's a great word. Well, the Crown Shot and Dreams, now that they've got the pickaxe, now they've got that Fairy Charm, seem to be pushing these waves out just a little bit more, got some levels under their belt. Cobby, as well as Norskirin, getting close to level 6. And as I look at the mini-map, Selfmade does have Paranoia available.
They're looking for the cage on Zoe into the Paranoia.
All right, Morning Mists will come down. And it's going to be a good damage. Exhaust buys some time. Cleanse is used as well. Humanoid escapes with his life after using every single ability. He manages to stay out of range of Pyrion's ults.
Very well done from Humanoid. He actually gets the flash in return from Selfmade because he connects the Sleepy Trouble Bubble under the tower. But we have a very quick pause. Maybe something went a little bit wrong.
Ooh, yeah, don't know. We'll find out shortly. But all credit to Humanoid. 3-on-1 after the roam. And as always, Selfmade at the initiation of a play for SK Gaming. SK Gaming, by the way, 33% of remaining scenarios and results get them into playoffs. And them watching Misfits just lose is a gigantic advantage. If SK win, puts distance between that 6th and 7th position.
How many of those stats do you have memorized?
A fair. I actually do have it written down, so I was reading it off paper, to be fair. But I am checking in between every game, talking to our stats team. I also have an update, by the way. My stats team ran the head-to-heads as well. If Splyce win, I mentioned that they would guarantee a head-to-head for playoffs. With head-to-heads taken into account, Splyce will guarantee a playoff spot with the win.
Perfect. So a lot on the line there. You can understand now why maybe a couple of the Splyce members looked a little bit nervous. You know, taking down G2 is one thing, but just every game in front of you.
Yes. That's what you got to do when you get to playoffs for a team that's historically been a playoffs mainstay. It is an SK pause, as you can see. Getting an update here from, I can see Pyrion, sorry. Taking a look at exactly what will be happening.
This was actually my question, because you looked at that play and you could see that Lissandra was coming down the lane, that it was Yorick and Nocturne, but Lissandra was conveniently absent from that. So I'm curious if something went wrong there on Pyrion's end that was the difference maker.
Well, I can find out that there is a Shadowplay review on the go. So as our league officials backstage are looking at the footage, we just get to build the tension. You know, we just get to keep taking a look at the game. And, oh, man, I actually can't put myself into the mindset of these guys that are sitting there, especially SK Gaming, who have honestly impressed and surprised a lot of fans and viewers. Expectations were very low for this team coming into the split, despite the fact they had that core of Mad Lions players. But they've picked up a number of wins. They've been particularly impressive in some of their wins. And, like, you know, Selfmade is the blowout player for the squad. They surpassed all power rankings and expectations from pre-split to now where they stand.
And I think it's because it's not just Selfmade to sing his praises. Pyrion gets a lot of praise from so many different mid laners throughout the league, even though it feels like competitively on stage, you know, the Friday, Saturday games, that you're not seeing Pyrion have these big pop-up performers. But again, anytime you talk to someone, his name always comes up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of these small intangibles behind SK, because if Splyce are so good at their fundamentals, SK are a really good momentum. I don't want to call them an emotional team, but they're super proactive. Selfmade very rarely looks for things like counter ganks. He's often the first jungler to the play.
Yes, that's true.
And so when they do have tempo in a game, when they are playing on the offense, SK can look super clean because they know where exactly to attack the map, how to say we're going mid lane, we're going top lane, like what objective is the easiest objective to secure and when they have the cooldowns to do it. Their problems arise when they start to fall back and they need to play a bit more reactively and defensively, and that's where a lot of teams struggle.
It's really funny though, because it's true for Splyce as well in many ways, especially the second half of your discussion, or how both of these teams, when they get to play their style, they look great. But when they have to react or, like, you know, differ from the playbook, a few more question marks prop up.
Differ from the playbook, but I actually think Splyce are very good at playing from behind. Few teams can play from a back foot, but because Splyce's fundamentals are so clean, they very immediately understand, okay, we can no longer force plays because we're not strong enough to win in team fights. What's the first step? And it's to secure defensive vision back in their own jungle. So if you watch them, anytime they fall behind, first thing, everyone's got control wards. Everyone's got their sweepers. They're clearing everything out, and they're opening free farm lanes so they can start scaling up on Kobbe. They'll also usually have a late game insurance policy pick on this guy, something like a Tristana or a Vayne, if you will.
Yeah.
And they'll just start making clear funnel paths for him to get those items and then look for the big 5v5s.
I think that's really important. And, you know, one of those memes from earlier in the split was that if you get past 35 minutes in a Splyce game, Splyce are going to win. You know, they have a reliable late game. And it's a testament to everything you've talked about in terms of their fundamentals, their basics, their ability to neutralize other teams that are unable to punish them.
Yeah, but that's the thing with the language. It's like, it's putting the decisiveness in the other team, like, oh, you know, I decided to take this to 35 minutes, and it's taking away the agency from Splyce. No. They are very good at getting the game to 35 minutes, whether they're winning or not.
I think that's super, it's really, really nuanced, and it is very impressive. And it's kind of a similar way that if you want to beat G2, you as the opponent have to counter their strengths, whether that's in draft, whether that's playstyle, but, you know, the onus is on you to take away their power. And the onus is on other teams to take away Splyce's power and their reliability.
And why I was so shocked about G2's priority of something like a Karthus jungle is it's very easy to attack Splyce in lanes. Xerxes is the very proactive early member from them. He is a very gank-oriented jungler. This time around, he's attacking self-made specifically, so you're not feeling his presence in terms of ganking top lane, ganking mid, ganking bot, but it's, you know, stealing away Krugs, making sure that he's shadowing where self-made is, trying to disrupt his flow. But if you are preparing for Splyce, I'm like, take every single winning lane matchup you can find, get the counter picks, and try to blow these guys up in the lane phase because they do like to play very patient, very cautious. Kobbe is a perfect example of kind of the essence of Splyce. He's not there to kill you. If you give it to him, of course he'll take it.
Yeah, he'll punish the mistakes.
But he knows where I'm playing for the late game. I'm not playing for this lane phase.
Yep, I'm playing for the win, and we know where we get our wins at what times. So while the officials continue to investigate, we will just keep chatting. And my stats team, they continue to run the numbers. There is a whole bunch of scenarios. We're talking over 16,000 options left. So as I've mentioned, if Splyce win this game, not only do they guarantee playoffs, they also 100% guarantee Vitality make it into playoffs as well. I think it was only like less than 1% chance they didn't make it. But with the win here, obviously pushing SK down to the, shall we call it Misfits tier, at 7 wins and 9 losses. A little harsh, sorry. You're wincing in pain there for us.
That's a bit brutal. I like the Misfits.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, if SK join them, then the win-loss difference will guarantee Team Vitality are locked into the top 6 along with Splyce.
I mean, the fact of the matter is you have legacy orgs like Schalke, like Misfits, and now SK joining them down there. And SK could very easily be the nail in the coffin to seeing one of these fan favorites not make it into top 6.
What's even more exciting is the new teams in XL and Rogue. They could be the ones digging the hole for the coffin to go in. Yes, other teams can obviously complete it, but you can't afford to lose those games. And the upsets that XL have pulled off has made it very, very interesting. So yeah, guys, unfortunately, we do have this extended pause. So SK Gaming did ask for a play to be reviewed, and our team backstage are currently reviewing it.
And I stand strongly. I know it's always obnoxious when you have to go through kind of like a technical pause like this, but in a game that is so high stakes, check everything. Double check it. If you feel that something was wrong, you don't want to, you know, play this game out, have everything go sideways and say, oh, you know, if I had only called on that. Just err on the side of caution.
Agreed.
Make sure that it's all good.
Well, taking a look at some of the matches, I talked about some of those heartbreak games. I mean, SK play Rogue next week, and they play Vitality. So can't afford to make any mistakes. I mean, Vitality's going to be a super tough game. And for Splyce, they've got Misfits and Fnatic. So, you know, Splyce, as you mentioned, could eliminate Misfits with a win if they win here today as well, and you start to do the mental math of wins and losses.
Yeah, it almost feels like at this point that Misfits are going to be eliminated just because they have lost the game. So regardless of all of the good ground that they made in the first half of the split,
they don't control their destiny anymore.
It's just been spent.
Yeah, all that good credit is removed. It's a very, very difficult scenario. We thank you very much for the coach shots as well, production, as the teams continue to chat, and fans here Also, I've been talking a lot about the Portuguese fans because they were here making noise yesterday, but I also believe there's about 50 Danish fans here today.
37 of them, and wait.
As you can hear. Now, the last time...
Wait.
Yes.
One guy from Norway. Who is it?
Is there one guy from Norway?
Yeah, I was talking to Martin backstage.
Okay. We actually have a Norwegian scriptwriter, so that's a shout out for him as well. Now, I am disappointed because the last time there was a Danish bus, everybody had Deficio faces. And I guess he's just not that much of a hot commodity anymore. So just one guy with the face. You know, warms my heart ever so. I actually think it is autographed by Deficio on the forehead as well. So if our production team was to get a look at the middle row. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do actually have an update for you after this pause. SK Gaming's Pyrion, his client minimized underneath the turret. League officials have investigated and have offered SK a chrono break. SK Gaming has accepted the chrono break, which will be set 5 seconds prior to the play at 8 minutes 25 seconds. Those of you who may not be familiar with chrono break, it is one of the tools that we have on the tournament realm to recreate the game at an earlier state. I assume that'll be just before that gank in the mid lane.
Makes a lot of sense. As I was saying, it felt like when it showed Pyrion on screen, I was like, hey, I thought there was 3 members in that gank right there, but I don't really recall Lysandra doing anything. I was waiting for the replay to see what happened, and it seems like Pyrion got kicked out of the client.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Extens is out of your control. All right, so this is actually just after the play. I will just refresh everyone's memory if you have just joined us. Chrono break took place after SK Gaming accepted the offer. Humanoid was able to outplay a 3v1 gank in the mid lane, which Selfmade initiated and spent his flash for. Humanoid's lost flash and cleanse Frostgurren.
Again, it's kind of, you know, where's the bad news for both sides? Well, Selfmade doesn't have the flash, but good news, Pyrion does have his flash as well as his ultimate available, and Humanoid's looking mighty fine and tasty. No cleanse, no flash. It could be a very easy repeat gank, but Humanoid knows that full well. And as we said in game number 1, his goal is no longer to play this lane. He is playing only for the farm. He is a visitor, a tourist here.
Well, fortunately, he's got blue buff, so he'll be able to farm up ever so slightly easier than our previous game. And Splyce will be starting off this Mountain Drake at 9 minutes on the clock. Vizichachi throws down the slicing maelstrom, but he's into a gigantic minion wave, so you really do not want to pick that fight.
The baby cage is so frustrating when you're playing Yorick versus Kennen, because if you get him inside of it and then you can just walk out of the ultimate range and just let your ghouls go to town, it's rough.
Yep, it really, really is. That Morning Mist throwing them forward is a terrifying animation as well. Scares the crap out of me. And now Selfmade and Pyrion, they're going to be looking to set a proactive play. Vizichachi's got flash available, but not much else.
Yeah, and there's no paranoia again, but like you said, Pyrion, he's got everything.
Yeah, Pyrion's ultimate was not used. There goes the claw into the ult. Duskbringer comes out, and this should be an easy enough kill. First blood to Selfmade, and he's able to escape. That was just clean.
Doesn't even need the flash, doesn't need the paranoia, and it's Selfmade who is the primary beneficiary, and that's exactly what you want. This Nocturne needed to find the springboard. It kind of feels like Nocturne gets 2 chances, and if he doesn't make good on his first 2 ultimates, that he will just fall behind because he needs to be ahead of his opponent. He needs to have kill pressure to actually be valuable in the game, so this is a big lifesaver for Selfmade after the mid game went totally sideways.
I don't normally like referencing games that happened earlier because it's not the point of this one, but I want to see what Vizichachi can do. Now he's 0-1 in comparison to what we saw Odoamne do, who went 1-0 and then started to snowball ahead. Playing from behind, such a different game, but it is one of the strengths of the Splyce squad. And they're currently down 700 gold, but they're up a Mountain Drake. So let's see how the next few minutes plays out as we're 11 on the clock.
It's also a very different responsibility as I'll hold that. How much damage? A lot of damage.
A lot of damage.
That's always a clincher.
It is so. A lot of tension when that trouble bubble hits. Another quick run of stats for you. Humanoid currently is the mid laner with the highest amount of deaths at 45. We actually put a lot of criticism his way about dying pre-15, a fair amount a couple of weeks back. Pyrion is actually the mid laner with the second highest amount of deaths at 41. So that could be influential as the game plays out.
I thought at first he meant 45 minutes. I was like, Trevor, of course he's died a lot in 45 minutes. They're very long games. Makes much more sense here. I don't think anyone's going to be dying a lot solo. If anyone is, Humanoid does have the microscope on him because of the nature of Lysandra's hard CC and the assassination potential that Selfmade has. But again, both these guys are playing for their side lanes, playing for their jungle control.
Yeah, unfortunately, Humanoid's got that cleanse available. The flash is a quarter of the cooldown remaining. And with the assistance of Selfmade and Pyrian, Selfmade's been fairly proactive in ganking. We've not seen a whole lot of Xerxes yet. There's Selfmade ganking once again. Remember, cleanse is available, but no flash. That was rinse, repeat, textbook, like you said, Frosk.
I mean, I said he should be playing for the side lane. He barely stepped off of mid lane and immediately got blown up. Huge credit to SK and their vision control that really set that up. Again, all of the control wards to the river meant that Humanoid had imperfect information and just picking on the rookie. That's an inexperienced type of play.
And also, I did say Humanoid traditionally has died a lot pre-15 minutes.
Right on time.
There we go. 46 deaths, still remains the most killed mid laner in the LEC as we're on week 8. And the fact that he's now gone from the scene with a roam from Whirlid is going to allow the Rift Herald to be picked up here.
Yeah, and there's just not a lot of options. Splyce can maybe peek their head in, but what they're, I was going to say, waiting for was their bot lane. But with the teleport from Vayne, the bot lane's already here.
All right, here comes Corbett, and the Rift Herald is now uncontested. Self-made, no paranoia. Whirlib is going to be looking for a Dark Procession. If you can lock somebody in place, maybe it'll work. Self-made Spell Shield did not work there. And the Rift Herald is secured at the cost of a teleport.
Yeah, I forgot about the TP from Kabe. Rookie mistake from me. This guy runs TP on virtually every single champion. And used it just in the nick of time. Really nice lane swap from Splyce to pick up Rift Herald.
Yeah, very, very nicely done. And with not a lot of time left before those turret plates go down, I want to see how quickly they've used it or decide to use it. This is running all the way back, so not a huge amount of time. And Kobe and Noskeren, they've already done that lane swap. I'm trying to look, one turret plate down in the top lane, traded, but then Pyrian's done a good job to secure 3 in the mids.
I mean, it's a lane swap of convenience. They wanted to contest for the Rift Herald. They got there just in time with the numbers advantage. It's interesting, you know, Kabe used to run TP all the time on virtually every single AD carry. He's recently started running heal, but it felt like he was doing it out of respect to G2's bot lane, knowing that G2 were a very scrappy, fight-oriented bot lane, so he wanted more of a battle summoner as opposed to more of the macro summoner that we normally see Splyce run. So it could just be a read on Crownshot and Dreams that, hey, even though they have the Galio with the Thresh, with the teleport, that we're not going to fight you anyway.
Yeah, very confident in that 2v2 then, you know. We saw Kabe and Noskeren actually pushing very early. They got Dreams' flash at like level 3. All right, that's a lot of damage. Take a look at that Silver Bolt. Here comes the Lantern. Woo! And Dreams forced to use the Galio ulti just to save Crownshot's life. Blade of the Ruin King, Kabe, Vayne, it hurts.
Yeah, and again, Vayne is no longer just a late-game scaling monster. She is powerful at virtually every point in the game right now. And again, I was talking about this concept earlier on with Vedius. Late game doesn't mean 5 items anymore. With Splyce, it might, because we might get there. But late game really means kind of 2 items, because that's when a lot of games are decided. And Vayne sits so comfortably there.
Yeah, and that's exactly where Splyce are gearing towards. I mean, they're still down 1,300 gold. They're down 2 kills. And Go Fish, Selfmade picked them up. But he's on the Nocturne. He managed to get to level 6. He also, remember, was put behind by Xerxes' Aatrox. But Frosk, I need you to give me a grade. How has Xerxes' jungle Aatrox been as we've officially crested the 15-minute mark?
Frankly, a little bit invisible. I think he was mostly playing for the control, though, which makes sense. It's easy to look at the score lines and say, you know, Selfmade's got 2 kills. Xerxes sitting on nothing. So clearly, Xerxes has been jungling worse.
Yeah.
But his goal was just very different. It was just to disrupt and to stall and to track Selfmade while his laners played safe.
All right, Death Sentence catches onto Dreams. He actually flashes forward. Here comes the Paranoia. Dreams forced to run for his life. A lot of burst damage as the Hourglass was used. Now Selfmade stays alive a few seconds longer. Sleepy Trouble Bubble not going to find its target. That's a 1 for 2. Here comes Humanoid. Xerxes on the board as well. And Splyce take control.
Just absolutely torn apart from Splyce right there. They've got the minion wave behind them and a very low tower. It's a super easy, clean play and a snowball gold advantage.
Yeah, really nicely done. The first tower secured. It takes control of the gold game. And just as I ask about Xerxes' performance, he's involved in the team fight or the skirmish that allows Splyce to take control. It will be at the cost of a mid-tower, though, and we're going to see this one set up from the start.
Take another look. What was curious to me is how quickly Zoe was actually able to get there and participate in the fight, because Pyrian and Zoe are racing up through the side lanes, and I believe that Lissandra is caught by the Sleepy Trouble Bubble as she came into the fight.
Oh, Vizichachi 0-1, not going to be able to find the kill just yet onto Crownshot, but he committed everything, including the flash. With Crownshot pushed out of the lane, there is some time to do damage on the tower. Instead, Drake number 2.
And it's normally for Splyce games, you have so much time to run those replays, to look at the long team fights, but Splyce are playing actually very quickly right now. We talked about how a lot of their champions really spike right now, and Splyce don't have to play late game, they just choose to.
And you said it at the beginning of this game, which feels like a long time ago now, what did their win against G2 yesterday mean?
Wait, Trevor, that's it. The pause took so long that we're actually in 35 minutes already.
Oh, that's next level macro for Splyce. They will secure the second tower. It will be at the cost of the top outer, though, as Werlib has been able to push it down. He's still 0-0-0 on this Yorick, working towards the Trinity Force. But I do like that moment, is like, you know, you have to try to understand the best of one results and the impact. And Noskeren, Flay will not find its target. Here comes Xerxes, stepping forward with the Darkened Blade. And Kyrian did not follow the claw. Meanwhile, down in the bottom, a lot of damage being thrown into Kobe. He solo kills Crown Shot. Didn't even see how that one happened.
He just dunked him. It's isolated. Xerxes and Noskeren, their only job wasn't to find a pick. It was to isolate the 1v1 between Crown Shot and Kobe. And Kobe just took the smackdown on Kaisa.
1-0-3, 100% kill participation. And Mr. Splyce, the man of the hour. All right, let's see how the setup. I'm assuming a condemn into the wall.
I'm assuming he's going to pop ultimate to make sure that he stays in stealth longer, so Crown Shot really had virtually no time to react.
That was actually beautiful. Nicely done, Kobe. Last pick Vayne, making it work.
Yeah, and again, it's on the control ward, making sure that you pop Final Hour when you're still in Fog of War, and then activate your stealth. So you're just limiting that tiny window that they have to react to you defensively.
Yeah, and what was it? Paranoia as well as Galio Ultimate Hero's entrance thrown in there. Grand entrance rather for added measure. But I'm going to go back to what we were talking about. You know, yesterday versus G2, Splyce did pick up that win. It was very convincing. It was very controlled. It's actually fairly reminiscent of this game in many ways. You know, kind of slow-ish start, not really conceding anything. Picked up first blood, 700 gold lead. And of course, we got the average game time there, just for the lulz. But Splyce won that game significantly early and significantly more confidently. And you can see by these plays already, they're setting up the momentum to do the same.
They've got another one.
Well, let's find out. Dreams
Into hook.
will get slapped, death sentence into paddle, and really easily killed by Splyce. And everything lands.
It is just too easy, and Splyce understanding what their win conditions are when they actually depress the tempo of the game, start playing more offensively, because again, you're still waiting around this kind of ticking time bomb of the York, who will be very obnoxious in these side lanes. So I like that Splyce, they're not slowing down, they're not in cruise control, they are actively trying to force more on this game while they're strong.
It is just so refreshing to see a team in the LEC that is in the thick of the playoffs race, improving and stepping up in some of the areas we wanted them to see. And Splyce, just when the going got tough, on the verge of applying pressure to Vitality. There's a defensive proto belt by Vizicachi to get out of that baby cage. There was pressure as well in this bottom lane, and the tower will be dropping. Werlib, though, is on a mission. He's not done yet. It is still only 1,000 gold lead at 20 minutes, and Werlib has been responsible in taking 2 towers.
And Chachi really has a lot of the responsibility for Splyce in this game of not just playing the side lane, but kind of picking his moments of when he is going to look for those flanking TP plays and force the big 5v5. Because Splyce can feel it. They're stronger right now. They want to force SK to fight them, but SK do have a lot of tools to try to get away from them, to not pull the trigger or to look for more picks. So Chachi needs to be on point. Okay, I'm mirroring Yorick when I need to mirror Yorick, and then I'm creating enough space that we can look for these opportunities, and when we have them, to take them.
Yeah, and yesterday, as Frost might say, was robbed of player of the game.
He was robbed.
Nomination, exactly, it's what I just said.
I just want to take the moment. Chachi, you had an incredible Renekton performance yesterday. You deserved that player of the game.
How difficult is it for Chachi in this setup? 0-1, coming up against Werlib's Yorick, who's already putting so much wave pressure on it.
I mean, you can see that Chachi's not having a good time, and the fact that Werlib feels so confident to flash after him whenever he gets a hold of the Kennen. That said, you still have to respect the fact that Kennen does have a lot of mobility, and if Werlib doesn't get the burst damage earlier on from his rotation, he doesn't want to chase too far from Kennen. So I don't expect anyone to actually die here, but I do expect Chachi to team fight.
Oh, Dreams gets stunned, death sentence, chains. Come on, guys, this just looks so painful, but Dreams survives. Dreams stays alive. Vizicachi, the caster curse was thrown down. Now Kobe is unlocked, picking a fight with Selfmade, who's got the GA. Dreams goes in with the ulti, gets back out. Dreams Dreams! You cheeky bugger! He escapes with his life. That's now a kill back in reply. Dreams goes down as Carmen tumbles and ducks and dives. The death sentence will not find a target, and Whirlip wants to clean this up. But Pyrian might go down. Gets the ultimate. Carmen gets 3. He tumbles again. Turns on the Whirlip. Finally goes down. Whirlip picks up the kill with the last rise. He's chasing in a North Scarron. North Scarron needs a blast. Carmen will not find it. Crown shot takes him out.
I cannot wait to see the replay on that. I think the paranoia was huge because it was a choke point that Splyce were trying to chase into and then didn't have the vision to finish off Dreams and got obliterated by Whirlip from the side. That said, huge credit to Kabe. I believe he picked up so much gold there. 4, 1, and 3 now on the Vayne.
How did Dreams not die? He should have been killed twice.
Watching. I mean, it's just the W, the fact that they get rooted. So Pyrian, right on time, zones the fight beautifully. They can't chase in, and then it's kind of a free-for-all. Who's going to... I can't believe Dreams goes back in and then gets out.
Such a bold call. Well, nevertheless, Kobe, I mean, he did so much work and makes this almost an even trade.
I mean, anywhere you looked on your screen, there were pretty crazy plays. The fact that North Scarron got the death sentence hook actually set up Kabe to even look for the triple key here. The Thresh had to come in just in time to save him to allow Splyce to even cling anything back on the back half of that team fight.
I think that ended up being a 3 for 4, but it is still extremely close as far as the gold is concerned. There's a Mountain Drake under Splyce's banner, as well as a number of damage dealers. They start the Baron, try to force SK Gaming's hands, and SK respond, but they aren't able to put any pressure on Splyce right now.
But they have a limited window to do so because, again, here's Yorick being obnoxious as usual and pushing forward on the bottom side. Now has kind of his core itemization complete, so he's not only a massive dueling threat, but he will actually just shred through these structures.
And of course, I've not really drawn too much attention to itemization just yet. 2 items across the board for most here. Talked about the GA for Selfmade, Luden's Echo and Protobelt for Pyrian. Now all of a sudden up in the top lane, Whirlip is just going to get run down as Humanoid comes to help out. In the combination, they are able to pick up the kill.
Maybe didn't expect Zoe to be there?
Yeah, definitely the case. I mean, if you look at the vision, there's not enough to really play around that, but Whirlip, he's trying real hard to play the side lane game.
Anytime you just walk up, get locked underneath the tower and dive, mistakes were made.
Yes, absolutely. Pretty simple League of Legends mistake there. But I mean, it is still a close game. It feels to me like Splyce should be further ahead though, for us. Like, gold difference is a case. 3 dragons in favor of Splyce, but towers are even as well.
It's the execution of the team fight. So SK still have a lot of power to very quickly, instantaneously delete someone, and they do have a lot of survivability. This is a Galio and a Lissandra composition, so if you try to grab them, their ability to stall out and for everyone else to jump onto it. Speaking of jumping onto.
Okay, now a lot of damage here onto Vizichach. He's got no ultimate available. Manages to escape with the E and the flash. Still had Protobelt if he had any more threats.
But in an elongated sustain fight, so if SK are kind of like this big pick burst potential, I still give the side of sustain fights in favor of Splyce.
All right, Kabe's going to get locked out by that Dark Procession. Not able to chase through it, of course. And he threw down the final hour ulti just to try and chase him. But for the time being, next Dragon's not up just yet. I'm looking at Vision. This is just going to be this lane game pressure for now, as both teams are vying for control of one of the next big objectives.
And we would assume that it would be Baron. The other thing that I do want to point out is Splyce's composition is harder to execute. It's much easier when you just have to stack all of your R buttons at the same time for SK. So in terms of margin for error, it is lower on SK's end for the comp.
I think it's fair, but then it also comes down to vision and picking those right fights. You can't afford to be in Whirlip's situation, out of position, overextended, and then just getting dunked by an easy trouble bubble.
Yeah, that's always going to be a case when you're against Zoe, but you're still looking at, there's so many more skill shots, lower range champions. It's about playing elongated fights from Splyce, so you need to have more information or perfect information, whereas SK have so many tanky abilities, so many tanky champions, the ability to help people out with the Galio. So again, it's easier for SK.
I think that's fair, and I also think that when you look at a champion like Kennen, especially a Kennen that's not absolutely obliterating his opponent. 1, 2, and 1, even on CS. Got the Oblivion all picked up there, and Chachi, or Spellbinder rather. I want to see how he uses this Kennen, because like you said, the difficulty of execution, burden of execution falls on Splyce. And of course, one of the real pick tools is those death sentences and those trouble bubbles. Teleport is available for Kobe, as the Baron has now been started.
But they have no vision of this area, so we're looking at Humanoid to at least lay down some of the initial poke.
All right, Sleepy Trouble Bubble Woes
Kobe's
out,
walking.
manages to catch onto Crown Shot. The Baron's not going down particularly quickly. Kobe will be able to make it in time. Trouble Bubble goes in once again. Paranoid by sometime. Look at Pyrian. He's been zoned out. Humanoids forced him away. Slicing Maelstrom into the pit. There's the killing instinct to the backside. Baron is picked up by SK Gaming, but at what cost? Everybody's going down. Kobe's currently untouched. Humanoid's got the first of the fight. Vizichachi gets another before he's taken on reply. It's Crown Shot that takes him down. Kobe is going to kill SK. Selfmade and Whirlip are running for their lives. Empowered recalls. Here comes Humanoid, but he picks the wrong shot. No, that's not the blast cone you wanted.
And it is only a single Baron that gets out, but it's on York. We've already seen how obnoxious he can be without the Baron buff. This is just going to empower his ability to split push. So the best case scenario for SK, if one Baron was going to get out, you wanted it on the York.
How do you possibly analyze or call a team fight like this where everybody just jumps into the pit and it is a free-for-all?
I mean, for me, I was basically looking at Vayne. I know everyone's going to ooh and ah because Pyrian is going to get absolutely smashed there from the Zoe. The Chachi ult comes in and it zones everyone out, but Kave gets to walk up to this fight and basically just stand still as Vayne. She's going to push in, get locked up into the baby cage, and then immediately condemn Crown Shot into the wall and pick up all of the kills.
Locked inside.
He's like, I want out.
Oh, man. You know what? If I were Kobe, I think I would just buy a... oh, that was such a misplay. I think I would buy Rapid Fire Cannon to just try to get at least a shot. He's got Phantom Dancer instead, obviously.
Well, Phantom Dancer fits a lot better right
Yes.
now in terms of third items. This is the pretty stock standard build. As good job, Humanoid. Might have missed the final Baron kill, but you got the Pyrian out.
Man, so much damage. 6,000. Here comes Chachi. And there's no slicing Maelstrom. And instead, we'll just be killing the Maiden of the Mist. And Splyce will be content. They've got themselves 4 dragons to their name. They picked up the Infernal. While we're in that replay, it is still even in gold, and it still feels like Splyce are winning and leading, but SK have got a lot of tools. They got an easier to execute composition. So give me some predictions for the next few minutes. You know, where do you see SK trying to, I think, gain control of the game? That's what I want to know.
I think it's all about Pyrian and Selfmade and who is going to be their target and who they actually find. Humanoid has done a much better job kind of in the back half of the game, clearing waves and then cheating down to his strong side of the map, making sure that it's not him who gets picked out. He is pretty vital to them because they don't have any safe wave clear outside of the Zoe.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous for either a Vayne, an Aatrox, or even a Kennen to step forward to try to clear out a wave against all of the initiation potential of SK's comp. So as long as Humanoid's actually alive, there's nothing that SK can really grab more onto the map as long as he's in the right place, right time.
All right, so, and that's something Splyce are pretty good at. They do have an understanding of that, and as we're just about to hit 30 minutes, those 3 items you mentioned, Phantom Dancer for Kobe as well as the QSS, Rapid Fire Cannon for Crown Shot, Hourglasses for both respective mid laners, and obviously GAs actually for both junglers too. Selfmade is on cooldown though, and I've seen in this bottom lane, Kobe was kind of like looking for an opportunity to pick a fight with Whirlib, but the vision you can see is backing that up as well. A couple of shallow control wards from Splyce. And now Whirlib, he's going to push all the way forward into 4 members of Splyce. Paranoid will buy some time, but Whirlib is dead before anybody else can arrive. There is pressure on Kobe, QSS and heal and flash, and he's running for his life. He's dead! It's Crown Shot that picks him up, thanks to the killer instinct. Without Kobe, can Chachi turn it around? 1, 2, another! Falling like dominoes! SK, it felt so good, but it ends so bad! Splyce take the fight!
They expended so much to get into the backline for the Vayne, and not only that, but she survived for so long. And yeah, you take him down, but that's a stacked AP Kennen. That's a massive carry Aatrox, and Humanoid is hitting like a truck. There's too many damage threats.
Yeah, too many problems to deal with. And SK Gaming, I'm still on the fence about that push. Whirlib, he did have support from the team. Look at the minimap, has multiple members of SK pushing up, and they can clear so much ground thanks to their ultimate.
I think it's an interesting decision because they know that their Lissandra was spotted. So SK knew that they had been caught in the trap that they were setting up, and they thought maybe Kabe's just trying to clear this, or maybe we can burn him down quick enough to win the fight. It just is a very suspect call from SK in a larger macro sense.
Yeah, I get that. And that's something I think we've said multiple times this split. I do think that's fair as not a criticism, but as an observation of SK Gaming's playstyle.
I mean, they're a very young team, inexperienced. You have a lot of players who have kind of been eaten up by the machine and spit out guys like Pyrian, like Warlib, like Dreams, who have had a couple of performances but never left their impact or left their name.
Well, let's see what Splyce can do now. This is the first time it feels like they're really pulling ahead. Got that gold lead. A minute to Baron, a minute to Dragon. And I've talked a lot about the Splyce comp, but how does Splyce win this game? I mean, they can split push with Vayne and Cannon, I suppose, but what other options do they have to unlock?
Their ability to siege is actually quite strong without Baron because they have Zoe. And this is one of the reasons why Zoe is globally so powerful. You see her in the LCK and the LPL all the time. And it's because you can walk up to structures like that. And as long as you have proper flanking vision, everyone has to back away, has to respect it, because a single bubble lands and you lose a member.
It's quite interesting as well because then you take into consideration the short-range Cannon, melee Aatrox, short-range Vayne. So whenever you push some of those towers down, the range of Zoe actually counters some of those weaknesses of the tower pushing champions for the rest of the Splyce comp. All right, deep vision setup behind the Cloud Drake. 10 seconds to Baron, no real super control for either team. And you have to feel that Splyce will be prioritizing Baron. There's no pressure on Dragon, so Kobe just picks this up uncontested.
Yeah, and it's more important to start the Elder countdown because now that the Cloud Dragon will fall, you have 5 dragons now available for Splyce, and they're opening up another win condition for them.
All right, Sleepy Trouble Bubble will manage to catch the Maiden, does not really matter. Humanoid was trying to pick up the additional CS point.
Uh-oh, Pyrian.
All right, let's see what happens.
Oh, Pyrian!
Oh, that's not what you want! Get slipped. Easy pickoff, and this should now set up the ability to turn and burn from Baron or an uncontested Baron. Infernal plus Mountain. Here come SK. I think this is going to be problematic.
Oh, Chachi. They don't see him. He's got the control ward.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, here comes No Scare. The box is put down. Willem gets caught out. Trouble
Where's
bubble
the
once
cannon?
again onto the Maiden. Uncontested
There's
Baron.
the cannon!
Here comes Chachi. He's found Crown Shot. Now, Crown Shot escapes with a very cheeky Killer Instinct and Flash. But Dreams, where are you going, buddy? Your team's not there. Dreams gets taken out. Baron secured by Splyce. And even a death sentence onto the Maiden. Splyce are in absolute complete control.
And it's going to get that much easier to siege now that you have the Zoe in tandem with the Baron buff. But once you have complete vision control of an area, we talked about the strengths of Zoe in sieging, it's also just control over Fog of War. She is so devastating in professional play because the teams know how to play around Fog of War. Probably why your Zoes in solo queue don't feel as impactful.
Yes, absolutely the case. You have to utilize all of those tools. Communication, coordination is key. And we caught a glimpse there, by the way, Frostcover. Little ghoulie on picture-in-picture, taking down a tower. I hear Vedius in my head saying, live your best life, Ghoul. Live your best life. For any regular viewers that saw that meme a couple weeks back, that's a shout out to you. So Splyce now pushing down top lane, 5k gold up. It's been a very fun game to cast because the team fights have just been epic. Literally everybody's been involved.
To me, they look a bit like a Thunderdome. Like, 2 teams enter, 1 team exits, but everyone's just putting like a Venn diagram of murder on top of each other.
I really like that. Mad Max enter the Thunderdome. In the end, though, Splyce. 35 minutes, Splyce activated. They have been all game, let's not kid ourselves, but we've now entered this area of the game where they've got Baron, they've got the ability to siege, they've taken down 6 towers already. It's just the inhibitor turrets left standing. And there's so many tools to play with. Kobe, 4 items completed, i.e. Blade of the Rune King, Rage Blade, Phantom Dancer, and we've seen just how impactful he is on this champion.
And I want to give a credit to Splyce's vision as they're pushing up like this. Everything is warded, and they have everything warded between the 2 lanes that they're playing against. So they're making sure that there's no pockets that Lissandra or Nocturne can slip into, because that's the only way SK come back here, is if they get big flanking ultimates on multiple members of Splyce.
Yeah, let's see what the 5-man stack in the top lane can do. Just brute forcing their way onto the tower. Pyrian's clenching as he takes a paddle star to the face. The inhibitor falls as well. There's still a minute left on Baron buff. And just to remind you, Splyce will guarantee playoffs with this win. They will guarantee Vitality playoffs with this win. And very, very importantly, Splyce join the fight for 2nd place. Vitality, if they lose to G2, be on the same wins and losses as Splyce, tying them up in seconds.
Just a very crisp, controlled game from Splyce. It felt like from start to finish, they knew exactly how they wanted to play this one out. And now, Their plan has come to fruition. They are fully online.
Yeah.
Where's the last stand?
Well, we're about to find out. There goes the pressure. Kobe's able to escape with his life for now. Turns back around. The GA is popped. There's a Chiachi with a slicing maelstrom. Has done so much work. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 members of SK are down. The ace for Splyce. And they're entering the base from SK.
Into the meat grinder of Splyce's composition. There was nothing SK could front right there. They had to make a go of it, but Splyce, welcome to playoffs.
Welcome to playoffs, Splyce. Join the fight for second place. Two things. Beginning of this game, I said that Kobe's vein was 3 wins for 3 games. That is now 4 wins, 4 games. Stats never lie. Second thing, for you, Frosco, what do you make of Splyce's performance in Week 8 of taking out G2 and SK?
I really liked the game plan from in this game, especially in the early game. I think it was a great read on Selfmade as a jungle to contest his camps like that. I think it was quite risky to go for a jungler that needs so many resources and then not have the laners to back you up or to protect you getting those resources in SK's sense. I know it seems like such a small, minute point, but again, Xerxes was a big factor in that early game in making sure that he put some speed bumps or some roadblocks in front of Selfmade, taking over a game, which is the primary win condition of SK, so...
Yeah, really nicely done then. Even though it's slightly less, visually understandable, Xerxes' impact, we're able to pick it up. See Kobe and a lot of Splyce fans here. It's giving high fives as they meet and greet. Splyce are guaranteed playoffs. They have got themselves 10 wins, 6 losses as they end Week 8. And if Splyce can keep this level of performance going to Week 9 in the playoffs, they are a threat. And they can potentially shake that moniker of gatekeepers.
I also want to give a huge shout out to Norskaren and Humanoid. It felt like when we were examining Splyce closer over the last few weeks that if their mid game falls apart, what's happening? Well, it feels like their mid and their support don't necessarily know exactly where they need to be on the map. You know, when Norskaren plays Pyke, he looks flashy, but he's not where he needs to be placing down the vision at the right time. Thresh, it was like a perfect happy medium. Norskaren was constantly with his team, shadowing underneath them, placing all the vision, setting up these clean sieges, and the guy who was sieging was Humanoid, and outside getting caught once, had a very clean game on the Zoe.
Well, clean game, clean team fight. I just want to bring up the last fight of the game. They're in the mid lane, just ahead of the inhibitor turret. Splyce end up crushing and picking up the ace, but it was a last-ditch effort from SK. You can see Dreams waiting in the wings, trying to set something up, but Werlib, he got slept before it even began.
It was the only pocket of vision that SK had found. They knew they needed the team fight in the flank. And unfortunately, the gold disparity spoke for itself. And really clean team fighting as well from Splyce.
Oh,
they are so good at fighting front to back.
They absolutely are. And, when you've got players of that caliber that rarely make those mistakes. Splyce, congratulations. You are now guaranteed a playoff spot. You're in the race for second place. More results when you come in for that to get heated up. Got numbers for you, as I always do, Frosco. SK Gaming's number of scenarios where they make it into playoffs was 51% before the game. It is now down to 14.6% of remaining scenarios as SK Gaming join the Misfits tier at 7 wins and 9 losses. Let's turn our attention to positive key player of the game, Vizichachi, Humanoid, and Kobe at LOL Esports. Who are you voting for and why?
I feel like most people will vote for Kabe because he was flashy on the Vayne, but I really liked Humanoid's performance that game. I think he was quite pivotal on the Zoe. And again, outside of kind of that one early misstep around the mid lane, he was constantly stalling out whenever SK did have offense. We're trying to push in. He made pivotal picks when it was needed, and he secured all of the objectives because he was landing all of his skill shots.
Yeah, for a mid laner that has died the most of all mid laners, he only conceded 1 of the 2 deaths pre-15, which is an improvement. Good job, buddy. But I like what you said. I mean, the moment you get to mid game, you get to late game, extremely reliable, extremely consistent, and was part of the reason Splyce won. For more, though, we're going to chat to their jungler with Frankie.
We have to look up.
I'm joined by Xerxes. Yes, Xerxes, we do have to look up because you, my friend, are in the playoffs. How does it feel?
It's actually unbelievable because I remember prior to this week, we were thinking that we need to win 2 out of 4 games, and our schedule was actually tough because we had to play G2, Misfits, SK, Fnatic, and they're strong teams. And it was a bit stressful, but after picking the 2-0 week, right now I'm really happy that we're in playoffs.
You must have been feeling quite confident after winning against G2 yesterday.
Yeah, it helps us a lot. And the thing is, like, the whole week of practice wasn't going too great, and we didn't get that much practice, and it wasn't going too great. So I'm really happy with the result.
Yeah, it seems like not practicing very much seems to work for you guys, which is quite unusual. Can we talk about that first fight in the Baron pit, though? I'm really curious about what happened on comms, because it was quite funny seeing Kobe come up from the bottom lane.
Yeah, so like Kobe was supposed to match the Yorick, but we didn't realize that Yorick was already with the team. So they just started the Baron, and Kobe had to run all the way from bot to the Baron. And we kind of knew they're going to start it. And we thought that we can stall. And we did stall, but the unlucky thing is, when I went into the Baron pit, I knew that Noxian used the smite, so I could have stolen the Baron actually. But because I died in that moment, I cannot smite during the ultimate, so they just get Baron, and yeah, that's really unlucky.
Zase, it's been a stunning weekend for you, I have to say. I think you've had, at least in yesterday's match against G2, you had 88.9% kill participation. What is it about your comms that's so effective? You're everywhere.
I mean, to be fair, it feels really easy to play on the stage because my teammates are providing so much information for me, and they just give me the information and I just pick the play. Like Chachi says, hey, we can go top. I just go top, and that's my team. So they play a big role in that.
I do want to ask you quickly as well. Your style as a team has been described as textbook, League of Legends by numbers. What do you make of that?
I mean, we're just playing for late game every game, so... No, I'm just kidding. I mean, many people think that we are still playing for late game, but lately we found that we can actually play early game, and we are actually a good early game team, and in playoffs we're going to be even better.
Well, I can't wait to see it. 10-6 is your score. Congratulations, Ersin. Congratulations to Splyce. We need to head for... Are we heading for a break, production? We're heading for a short break, and then we're coming back, and we're going to see XL versus Fnatic.